were probably here last week. It was a great celebration, wasn't it? Yeah, I know that's why you're clapping. And it was, we get to play Big Fish, Little Fish. And, you know, one of the things that people often do for New Year's is they make New Year's resolutions. Has anybody this year made a New Year's resolution? We'll put up your hands. Okay, very good. A few people. You know, people often wonder, well, what is the point of making New Year's resolutions? And we have to go to the word resolution. And it really has sort of two parts to it. When you look at the dictionary, they don't break it up quite that way. But one of the things you can see is it's made up of the word solution with re in front of it. So it's almost implying that at one time we had the solution and we lost the solution. And so now we should go re-solution. You know, we should go back to what is the solution. So all of us are pure spirit souls. According to the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that we're all eternal souls. And so the real solution, Arjuna presents Krishna with a problem, right? There's about to be a big battle on the battle of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna feels distressed because he sees that many men on the battlefield are going to be killed. And many of these men, they have families, there's aunts and uncles, and even some of the people that Arjuna is fighting against, like grandfather Bhishma, he considered his own grandfather. And so it was like, how can I fight this battle? It just doesn't seem right. And so he lost the solution to his problem. You know, being a pure spirit soul and being a servant of Krishna is the best thing. And we know from the stories of the Mahabharata that Krishna tried to get peace with the Kauravas in so many ways. I mean, Krishna carried out diplomacy like almost no one has ever carried out diplomacy. He really tried to make sure that there was not going to be a battle. But the Kauravas were just so intent on just saying, no, the world is ours, and we will not share it. We will not even share the amount of space that can be taken by a pin with the Pandavas. So it came to pass that Krishna said, listen, these men are selfish, and that is not the proper way of the world. They have lost their way, and the only way for the world to get back on track is to have this battle. And so the battle of Kurukshetra took place. So there was Krishna speaking all the way through about a solution to Arjuna's problem. So many people have New Year's resolutions that they consider like, I'm going to give up smoking. Probably many of you people work with somebody who said, oh, for New Year's I'm giving up smoking, or I'm giving up drinking too much, or eating too much. You know, I'm going to go out and exercise more. They all have these different ideas that if I just do this one thing, my life will be better, right? And so it's an effort to try to correct their bad habits. They may have some bad habits, and so they make a resolution to try to correct those bad habits. And they want to be a better version of themselves. And who doesn't want to be a better version of themselves? Is anybody here thinking, I want to go out and become a serial killer today? I really hope not that anybody's thinking like that. But, you know, that would be the opposite of being a better version of yourself, right? So Making a New Year's resolution is trying to be a better version of yourself. Somebody who is kinder, gentler, more in touch with their neighbors, and more loving and more concerned with everybody, and just more peaceful and happy in their existence. So they're trying to get all these solutions, and they think, well, if I just take one thing at a time, if I just quit my smoking or quit my drinking, or if I eat a little less, then that's a step forward in becoming a better person. So, what is required when somebody goes to make a New Year's resolution? First of all, when somebody is going to make a resolution, that desire has to be there to be a better person. But it takes a lot of honesty and humility to examine oneself and say, these are the things that are wrong with me now and that are causing me suffering. That there are things in my character, in my person, that are causing me to have conflict in my life. And if I can change these things, then perhaps I can be happier. So they think, the materialists, they think that any little thing is a step in the right direction. And it is perhaps a slight step in the right direction. But there are steps that we'll get to that may be more fruitful if one really wants to become the best version of themselves. So, have you ever heard that expression, how's that working for you? Right? It's just like, if you've ever been to marriage counseling, if my wife was here, she'd probably go, why'd you bring that up? But everybody has marital problems, right? And so you either read about it in a book, or you go to somebody who helps you through an issue or something like that. But a lot of times, the problem between husband and wife is when they both get entrenched in their ways and they start arguing. And what happens? It just goes nowhere. And so the question that is asked a lot of times by the therapist is, well, how's that working for you? And most of the time it's like, well, not very well. That's why we're here, getting counseling. And so really in the material world, people are having all these different things that they're thinking. And the way they're interacting with the world, how's that working for you? For instance, there's a lot of people in Toronto who make a lot of money. You can see the people who live right down Roxborough. I mean, every one of these houses is probably close to $2 million just on this street, right? Or even more. But they're still not happy, right? Money does not buy happiness. Because what does it do? In fact, for most of the people, it just buys anxiety. Well, I've got this big house, I have to put in an alarm system, I have to make sure that the sump pump is working so that it doesn't flood, and I have to make sure the wiring is all okay, and there's just so many anxieties in owning a house, right? And I have to make sure that the rain doesn't come in through the roof, and the one thing after another, it happens. And everybody's thinking, if I just get the perfect house, the perfect situation, then I'll be happy. Does it ever happen? No. They're never happy. And I guarantee, you go down the street, you ask somebody if they're happy, if we started knocking on doors right now, half of the people who we'd meet would probably be intoxicated. And they would say, oh, I'm happy. And it's just like, well, why are you intoxicated? Well, I wasn't happy before I got intoxicated, but I'm happy now. So they're really not happy. So what is it that we can do to bring ourselves to finding what is really true happiness? First of all, we have to understand, just like Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that you are an eternal spirit soul, that you have nothing to do with the material world. He does say, Matrasparshasta Kunteya Sitoshna Sukadukada. That, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception only, O Shiyana Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Just like if there was a blind person sitting here in the temple, and the lights went out. Everybody, if the lights went out now, if it just became completely dark, it would be like, oh, you know, what are we going to do? Right? But for a blind person, he'd just be sitting there, why is everybody making noise? So, in one sense, the appearance of happiness and distress is like that for the spirit soul. It's like happiness, because we're identifying with the material body rather than identifying as a spirit soul, we go, happiness, yay, I feel great. Oh no, sadness, oh, I feel so bad. It's just like, lights on, yay, lights off. Oh no, what am I going to do? It's lights on, lights off, happiness, distress, just like that. It's constantly going on for the materially minded persons. But somebody who is a self-realized soul, who understands their eternal position as a servant of the Supreme Person, and is functioning on that platform, they don't experience that happiness and distress. I don't know how many, was anybody here in 1976 when Srila Prabhupada sat right under where that big camera is, practically, was where the Vyasasan used to be? Was anybody here then, besides me? I was here when Srila Prabhupada was sitting right there, and Srila Prabhupada actually had quite a swelling in his mouth. And the devotees who were serving Srila Prabhupada had noticed that his face was swollen, and they had said to Srila Prabhupada, aren't you experiencing some difficulty, some pain because of the swelling in your mouth? And Srila Prabhupada, and they said, perhaps you should not give the Sunday feast lecture. It was the Sunday feast, and Srila Prabhupada was going to come down and give the lecture. Perhaps you shouldn't do it because of all this pain and suffering that you're undergoing. And Prabhupada just looked at them like, no, that is why I came, was to give Krishna to these people. So I am going down and I'm going to deliver the lecture just like nothing's wrong. And he did that. You couldn't even tell that Srila Prabhupada was bothered by it. I mean, for any of us, we'd be going through the roof. Because later on, Srila Prabhupada, after that lecture, that night, Hari Sori, who was one of Srila Prabhupada's personal servants, Srila Prabhupada actually loosened his tooth and he pulled it right out of his mouth. And it had a hole right through it. Like it was right through the nerve. And anybody else would have been just like completely in utter pain and just not being able to tolerate. But Srila Prabhupada delivered a whole Sunday feast lecture without even thinking about it. And I seen the tooth. Hari Sari Prabhu still has the tooth, and he showed me the tooth, and the hole is right through, right from front to back. It just goes right through, right. And he said when Srila Prabhupada pulled it out, the nerve was still in there. You could see, yeah. But it has since fallen out, and now you can just see through it. It's a hole about the size of a, if you take the inside of a pen out, it's about that size, and it goes, the refill of a pen. It goes right through his tooth. So Srila Prabhupada was acting on the platform of the solution. Prabhupada was not feeling any pain. He was not disturbed by happiness or distress. There was another time when Srila Prabhupada was he had always had a desire to go behind the Iron Curtain to deliver the message of Krishna consciousness in the communist countries. And Srila Prabhupada had been trying for years, for 2 or 3 years, he had been trying to get a visa to go to Moscow. And Srila Prabhupada was somewhere in the US at the time, and they were on their way, they had already booked the tickets to go back to India. And it happened to be mango season in India. And most people like mangoes. And but the visa came just about a day or two before they were going to be flying to India. And Srila Prabhupada said, "We've got the visa, we're going to Moscow. Book the tickets to go to Moscow." And the devotees who were traveling with him, "But Srila Prabhupada, we were going to India, and it's mango season in India." And Srila Prabhupada said, "The preaching in Moscow is sweeter than the mangoes in India." So Srila Prabhupada was not disturbed by happiness. He was not enamored by anything in the material world. And the more that we get enamored by anything in the material world, the more it puts us off track of being the best version of ourselves that we can be. Every time that we become attracted to something material, whether it's foodstuffs or a member of the opposite sex or a nice house or a big car or a nice watch or anything like that, the next time we get attracted to something like that, we should realize, am I going to use this in Krishna's service? Or am I going to become attached to this thing which will then divert me from being able to be on the spiritual platform? We should be thinking like that. Am I going to allow myself to become diverted from being an eternal spirit soul and actually functioning on that platform? And at the end of this life, when I die, if I have no material desires, no attraction for the material world, Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, that one who has no attraction for the material world, upon leaving this world, he attains to my supreme abode. So do we want to go back to the supreme abode? Do we want to act as spirit souls? Or do we want to act as materialists, engaged in the material world? And then what happens when that happens? We start thinking we're this body, that I'm Indian, that I'm Muslim, that I'm Hindu, like that, or Chinese, or American, or Russian, or Ukrainian. You know, there's so many different ways of identifying in the material world. But what happens? All of them lead to war. Either a war within ourselves, or a war even with husband and wife, you know, or a war with our neighbors, or, you know, countries have wars with their neighbors, and it just goes on and on. It's constant disenchantment with the material world. But if we get rid of all those designations and we function as a spirit soul on the platform of spirit, just in our relationship with God, with Krishna, then we can always be happy. We will not be disturbed by happiness and distress, so we will have a very steady life. The ecstasies may come. There may be, you know, a self-realized soul can still have a child and be happy that they've had a child. I'm not saying that you have to walk around like an automaton, you know, but what I'm saying is that you realize that even having a child, am I just becoming attached that this is my child, or is this Krishna's child, and I have the duty to bring this child up in as spiritual a way as possible, right? So that ecstasy of having a child then becomes converted and motivates one to become spiritually engaged. So we should keep ourselves constantly spiritually engaged if we want to be happy. So we should be thinking, now that I've kind of gone through all that, What is it, in what way can I make a New Year's resolution to become more spiritually engaged? Is it a big deal? Do I have to surrender in some way? Do I have to give up my house or my car or my job? Do I have to shave my head? Do I have to start wearing a dhoti every day? No, none of those things constitute surrender. What really constitutes surrender is our consciousness. This movement that Srila Prabhupada created, everybody comes here, they know this is Iskcon, right? Everybody, oh, Iskcon, I go Iskcon in India, Iskcon here. What does Iskcon stand for? It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Right. So what is it? The only thing that we really have, which is our own, is something that is spiritual, and that is our consciousness. That's the only thing that we have. We don't even own these bodies. They get taken away at the... I'm almost 70 years old. I know that I'll be really lucky if I have 20 more years on this planet. But it's just a matter of time before all of us leave our bodies. So we should be thinking, what can I do now to be functioning on the platform of Krishna consciousness? And it's really, really simple. Just chanting Hare Krishna. I mean, it almost sounds crazy, it's so simple. It's like to get completely free from all duality and all fear and all problems. Just chant Hare Krishna. That's all you have to do. And the more that you do it, the more that your consciousness is absorbed in Krishna, the more that we're thinking of Krishna at every moment of every day, just remembering him. The 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, 3 in the first line. Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing. So before we can chant, we have to know what to chant, so somebody has to tell us. But I think almost everybody here already knows that we're supposed to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is what we are supposed to do on the spiritual platform. It is constantly what our soul is doing all the time. Even within this material body, our soul is actually not part of this body at all, but the 8 material elements that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Those are the 8 material elements of which our body is composed. And so they go from gross, earth, water, fire, air, ether, more subtle, and then mind is more subtle still, and then the intelligence is more subtle than that. But the most subtle is the false ego, and false ego is that which is making us think that I am this body. I look in the mirror and go, oh, I look good today. But no, I'm not even seeing myself. I'm not seeing my spirit self, who I really am eternally. That is my real identity. So every time we look in the mirror, we're not seeing ourselves. We're just seeing this gross lump of matter. But if we begin to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we will begin to get the Premanjana Charita Bhakti Valochanena. Lord Brahma says that one's eyes must be anointed with the salve of love for Krishna in order to see that spirit, to see their own selves, their spirit selves, and to see Krishna. What does it take? It just takes that anointment with the salve of love. And how does that love begin to grow? It begins to grow by calling on the name of Krishna. Just like the baby doesn't know the mother's name, but definitely has something that is in tune with the mother, right? Like a mother in a crowd, even there might be other babies crying, but the mother knows where my baby is just by that crying. Every mother who's here, I'm sure, feels that. I know when it's my baby, right? So Krishna knows. And Srila Prabhupada, there's a very nice tape that we play here of Srila Prabhupada chanting. And he gives a purport to the holy name of the Lord. And he says that the chanting should be in the mood of the genuine crying of the baby for its mother. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we should be crying out to Krishna. Krishna, please engage me in your service. Please allow me to act on the spiritual platform so that I can once again be in my relationship with you. Just like a baby that's crying, that's lost from its mother. They're just crying and they're like, I just want my mother. I don't want anything else. We should be thinking like that. But right now in the material world, what are we thinking? We're thinking, I need a house, I need a home, I need this relationship fixed, just so many different material considerations. They should all take a back seat to our one spiritual consideration of becoming completely Krishna conscious and becoming completely surrendered to Krishna, the way that Arjuna does at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tam Sarva Papibhyo Mokshayashyami Masucha. Just abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. So Krishna has gone through the whole Bhagavad Gita, giving all the different yoga understandings and the way to attain the Supreme, and so many different instructions to Arjuna. But at the end, he basically says, so you can carry out your devotional service, and because you are a Kshatriya, you have to fight the battle of Kurukshetra, and I've explained to you why you should do that. But I'm leaving it up to you. Krishna says, you can do this or you cannot do this. I am not forcing you. So I'm not forcing you to chant Hare Krishna. But I'm appealing to you that I know that the chanting of Hare Krishna has helped me immensely in my life to deal with all the dualities and everything. I'm not saying I'm a pure spirit soul or that I'm on a spiritual platform. Not in any way, shape, or form. But I know that by just taking shelter of Krishna, it really does, by chanting the holy name, it really does connect you with Krishna, puts you in that spiritual consciousness, and relieves the problems in the material world. Not that ultimately Lord Chaitanya, he prays Ashlishyava Padaratam Panashtivam Adarshanam Marma Hatam Karotuva Yathatata Va Vidadata Lampato Mat Pranam Natas Tusa Eva Nabara. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Just like Queen Kunti. Queen Kunti prays in the Srimad Bhagavatam that her and her family, the Pandavas, they went through so many calamities. There was a house of black, and they would try to be poisoned, and they got banished to the forest, and so many things went wrong for them. And yet every time they got pushed in this very bad way, they remembered Krishna. And by remembering Krishna, they felt the highest ecstasy. And that highest ecstasy is there. It's our birthright. It's our spiritual right to enjoy that highest ecstasy with Krishna. And we can get it by developing a relationship with Krishna, beginning by chanting the holy name. So, all of us in this New Year's, it's getting close to the end of the class time, but all of us at this time of the year, we should be thinking, if we are going to make a resolution, it should be a spiritual resolution, and it should be that I want to become a pure servant of God. Whatever, I'm not even saying Krishna here. I mean, for most of us it's Krishna. Some people of other faiths may be here, and they may feel that they want that connection with Allah or Jehovah. Same person, just a different name. Krishna has unlimited names. Rama, Govinda, Adhoksaja, Nishinga. The names go on and on. But we should all be looking for that relationship with the Supreme Person, because that's the only way in which we will ever be happy. And there's nothing in the material world that can ever come close to that happiness. So please, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. That was one of the things that Prabhupada said so often. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Because if you chant Hare Krishna, I can guarantee for each and every one of you that you will be happy. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. It's a couple of minutes. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Namaskar. Hare Krishna. How long we should chant? Namaskar, Hare Krishna. For how long we should chant Hare Krishna?
Well, you can always chant. And the more you chant, the happier you'll be. But even I worked at in a hospital job as a respiratory therapist. I saw a lot of bad things, kids dying in the hospital. I worked at sick kids. And if you're chanting Hare Krishna in your mind when you're doing your work, that's fine. And sometimes even when you're doing your work, because the work, you're taking the results of your work and you're using it to bring up your family and your home and everything. You're using that in Krishna service. Make your house a temple. Serve Krishna. Offer everything that you eat to Krishna. Wake him up every day. Say goodnight to him at night and put him to sleep. It's like Krishna. Bring Krishna into your home. He's a person. He's not somebody that, he's this God in heaven. No, he's a person. He wants to be part of your life. And when you're walking down the street or you're working at your job, just say, thank you, Krishna, for helping me do my work. That I'm not having a stomachache today. Or if I am having a stomach day, well, thank you, Krishna, for not killing me today. For not, that I'm not missing, leaving my body today. There's always something to be thankful for. And there's always something that Krishna will give us. And even if we were leaving our body, we're going back home, back to Godhead if we're remembering Krishna, so who cares? It's just like, my wife always says, well, if you actually got the diagnosis of cancer, you'd probably be really freaked out. But I almost think about it every single day. And I have been for like the last 10 years. What would happen today if the doc phoned up and said, you know what, we did a test, last month or something, and you've got cancer? I'd be like, okay, great. I get to chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead sooner. And even if I don't go back to Godhead, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if you don't finish the path, at least you'll take birth amongst devotees and you'll again get the chance to be with devotees. So it's going to be a great service, somewhere else in the material world. You'll always be engaged in his service. So there's no loss or diminution, ever. Ever. It's, Krishna consciousness is the perfection of our existence. And we must become Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think now it's time for prasad. Yes? Time for prasad? Is there announcements? No, I think it's time for prasad, and I think the devotees are ready to serve out. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. After all this, Happy New Year.